Business Growth Talks podcast is created and hosted by Mark Hayward. In this show, we talk about how to grow a business in the growth stage. The growth stage is often marked by rapid developments, increased revenue, and an escalating customer base. In each episode, we talk to entrepreneurs and business owners who have grown businesses, and we cover topics like scaling processes, market expansion, financial management, human resource and talent development, and customer retention. If you are looking for actionable advice, tips, and techniques on how to grow, run and build your business, this is the podcast for you.
Welcome to today's episode of Business Growth Talks, where we dive deep into the hints, tips, and strategies of growing and scaling businesses. I'm your creator and host, Mark Hayward. Joining us today is Jeremy Jenson, the founder and CEO of Search Partners, a titan in executive search industry. Under Jeremy's vision, leadership, Encore Search Partners have consistently ranked at the top of Houston's Business Journal's list of the largest executive search firms, clinching the number one spot for 3 consecutive years. His firm has not just grown rapidly, securing a place in HBJ Fast 100, but also been recognized as one of the best places to work on a number of occasions. At Encore, they specialize in headhunting top-tier talent across various high-stake fields like technical sales, engineering, finance, and others. What sets Jeremy apart is his deep experience in the entrepreneurial operating system and his commitment to his 7 core values: excellence, resilience, gratitude, professionalism, coachability, meticulous, and competitiveness. These values will actually define the culture of Encore and also drive the success of the business. Today, Jeremy is here to share his insights into his business as the go-to firm for industry leaders who want to make their approach to executive search so effective. If you are enjoying this content, please do consider subscribing to businessgrowthtalks.com for more information. Jeremy, welcome to the show. How are you today?
Thank you for having me on, Mark.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for being here. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. I can't remember the last time we had someone with executive recruitment was actually my business partner that I had on probably about 4 years ago, before he was my business partner. So I'm really excited to get back into this conversation about executive search, and we'll talk about lots of other areas to do with your business as well. But the first question I ask all of my guests is, what does a business mindset mean to you?
So for me, a business mindset is recognizing that you're in business to make money, right? And so obviously there's several different things that go into making that happen, right? Client service, treating your people right, marketing, lead generation. But I think that having a business mindset is really being focused on profitability, not just revenue.
Very interesting point. I think that's something that has come out a lot since we're talking about growing and scaling businesses. Not everyone, but people start with the revenue line. That's the most important thing. And yeah, obviously revenue is important. You need to be generating earnings and revenue from your clients. But actually that profitability is the thing that actually makes a business be able to be sustainable as well. Do you agree?
Absolutely. And then there's individuals that I know socially, right? And then also through various business organizations where they might have $20-30 million in revenue, an unbelievable headcount, and then they're not pulling any net profit out.
Yeah.
So to me, I respect the individuals that have the profit. You could be 2-3 employees, but if you're making $10-15 million a year in profit, that's a great business person.
Yeah. 100% agree. 100% agree. That's a really valuable point for my listeners. All right. Next question. Tell me one thing about your upbringing which reflects on who you are today.
Interesting. One thing about my upbringing that has impacted me today is I was raised by a single mom. She had me at 16 years old and was a high school dropout. My dad left whenever I was probably 8 or 9 years old. And it was just my mom and my brother, who was 7 years younger. And I vividly remember living in apartment complexes and having to move in the middle of the night because there were eviction notices on the door. I went to 7 different schools before I got into high school. And fortunately, I did all 4 years at the same high school. But We were just bouncing from apartment complex to apartment complex on somebody that didn't do credit checks, right, on my mom.
Right.
And grew up very poor. And I think that one way that's impacted me in my adult life. And right before this, I had my meeting with my life coach that I have every week, but is the constant need for people to know that I'm successful. And I think that's tied to childhood trauma of not feeling like I was worthy or belonged in the right friend group or cool kids table right at school, and being isolated because I'd never really gotten the opportunity to develop sustainable friendships because I was always the new kid in school. The desire for friendships is certainly something that stemmed from childhood trauma. And then for people to, on the surface level, know that I'm successful.
How have you demonstrated to other people, sometimes in a very shallow way, that you're successful? How have you done that?
Obviously, there's clothing, cars, things of that nature, right? I was talking to somebody the other day. I bought a new Ferrari F8. And my friend Josh Pitts, who owns an LED distribution company, calls me. He says, "Are you loving that Ferrari?" And I said, "Oh, man, I never even drive it." And he goes, "Why'd you buy a Ferrari? You don't even drive it." I go, "I don't give a shit about the car, dude. It doesn't bring you happiness. But if you've got a new Ferrari F8, you start getting invited to different parties, right? With people that have different cars in the valet line." And so I wanted access to that community of individuals. And so by having the object, the Audemars Piguet watch, the Ferrari in the driveway, living in the right neighborhood, then you start gaining access to that certain social class. And so I found that I've been able to maintain authenticity with my real values and my personality and my own thoughts, and not necessarily play the character whenever I'm in those rooms. But again, it is that childhood trauma that's really planted that seed that said, "Hey, Jeremy, you need to be at the cool kids table."
Do you think, so you don't think you need them? It's not you use it as a tool to get to the high net worth individuals. You don't think you need it as a status symbol for you as a person?
I personally don't believe so. And I've got a life coach. I've got a therapist here on staff. We've got a performance and mindset coach. I do a lot of self-discovery and reflection and reverse engineering on my thought process and the decisions that we make. So I would say that I am very self-aware. But in the executive recruitment industry, our clients are private equity firms, law firms, investment banking institutions. The more people that personally know me, that know that I'm a credible resource in the space that generates over $13 million a year in revenue, I think that will eventually snowball or continue to snowball with just being well networked with affluent individuals in the Houston community.
And how do you do, like, high net worth individuals? They're defined differently, I think, from the UK to the US. I think the US, you have to have more dollars than you do need pounds. But it's interesting because I think it is. I was on a course a little while ago talking about high net worth individuals, and it's something like it's £1 million to be a high net worth individual in the UK, where it's like several $1 million. It's something
I think 5 million net worth, right? But again, there's net worth, and then there's high income individuals. I know individuals that make $1 million a year and don't even have a savings or 401k or retirement account.
Yeah, it's like some of the people that I know that have had very successful jobs, and and as a job, you spend the money that you earn on a mortgage, on the car, on the thing. So the whole point that we started on about profitability is you can, in your own personal income, is very important as well.
Yeah. And I think whenever you look at financial independence, I think that should absolutely be what's tied to net worth, and not just the number of dollars or pounds. Yeah. But if somebody has the ability to purchase what they want, when they want, travel when they want, take time off, I would say that's a high net worth individual. And it may not necessarily be tied to just raw numbers in the bank, for sure.
And what's your view on freedom, like financial freedom, time freedom? Is that very important to you?
I would say that whenever I was in my 20s, I was really primarily focused on acquiring dollars, money. And then I got money, and I realized that it wasn't money that brought me happiness. And so then what I wanted was power. And so then I started to hire people, right? The more people that I have power over that do what I say when I say, I thought that would bring me happiness.
Mm.
And then I went through a divorce, realized that losing half of my net worth, it really didn't change the way that I looked at myself. It didn't change the way that people looked at me in the community. My clients still wanted to work with me. And I realized that there really wasn't a personal, emotional tie to money or even power. Then I started to really focus on gaining influence and started to lean in on creating content on LinkedIn and Instagram and gaining a big social following on those platforms. And then what I've realized now that I've got influence as well is it's really that freedom component, being able to do what I want, when I want, with who I want, and not necessarily staying confined in this social construct of what a CEO needs to look like or needs to speak like or who they associate with. And I say that it's really that freedom to do what I want that has been very liberating in this new season of life, for sure.
Do you think you're
not necessarily, I wouldn't necessarily tie it to financial freedom, right? Because I would say that I had financial freedom at a very young age and it still didn't bring me happiness.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the resilience that you've gone through, and we call it, this is the most positive way of having a chip. Do you understand chip on your shoulder?
Oh, I've got a big chip on my shoulder. Yeah.
But in a very positive way. Like you've gone through and you wanted financial freedom, you wanted power, you wanted influence. Now you want time. That chip on your shoulder can be very powerful for a driving force, for a business owner or an athlete or an actor. Those experiences and that resilience that you hold that pushes you forward. Do you think it's been a major factor for your success?
I absolutely do. And I'm very fortunate to be in business as opposed to being the actor or the athlete, because I almost feel bad for the individuals that need to physically do the work in order to make the money, right? So when that actor is not on stage or behind the camera, they're not generating revenue in theory, right? Mm-hmm. Hopefully they've negotiated some type of syndication agreements to where they're getting paid every time their stuff is played, or the surgeon that needs to be the one doing the surgery, right? Yeah. They might make $1 million a year, $2 million a year, but what happens if they destroy their hands? Being in business, if you create sustainable processes and systems and continue to invest in growing your people, right? Those are mechanisms that don't necessarily require the CEO to be present in order to make sustainable income. And so that's been very liberating for myself. And so I think that by having that mindset at a very young age and not necessarily needing to be the one that made the cold calls or developed the client relationships or develop the content, right? Or process the payroll even, or did the one-on-ones with the team, by continually hiring individuals to do the legwork, it's allowed us to sustainably grow, for sure.
And we'll talk about keeping talent a little bit later on, but I want to move on to, so your early career, you did sales. You spent a lot of time in sales, and I wanted to, because when executive recruitment isn't an area which I've spent any time in myself. I've obviously used them when I was in a corporate career. But executive recruitment is very similar to sales, isn't it? You're essentially selling the person who wants to change their jobs, or you're selling to the company to get their business to come in. What have been the similarities between the two, and what made you move into executive recruitment after the sales roles?
Excellent. Yeah. In my early career, I was in commodity sales, right? So either selling payroll services or selling pipe, valves, fittings. I have a product. Do you want to buy? That's a very unemotional transactional experience, because then it's about timing and it's about price, right? That doesn't necessarily require a lot of creativity or innovation. It just requires effort and consistency and follow through and follow up. And then whenever I started my first business in 2010, it was an email marketing and lead generation business. And that was my secret sauce. I would go into organizations and implement email marketing strategies and internet marketing strategies in order to generate leads. And I grew that business to about $250,000 in revenue in my mid-20s. And I was running out of hours in the day. You probably have quite a few listeners that have businesses that they think are successful where they're making $300,000 a year and they just don't have enough time in the day to do anything else. Mm-hmm. And I said, this can't be the end game. I'm sitting here working all these hours. We've got a baby on the way. What can I do in order to profitably scale past this? And I took a look at my client base and I realized that half of my clients were staffing and recruiting companies. And so I said, why the hell am I charging them $2,000, $3,000 a month? And they're over here making $50,000, $70,000, $100,000 a month from the service that I provide. So in 2013, I said, I'm going to get into the recruitment business. And so by leveraging my secret sauce, which was lead generation, how do I get a client to reach out to me and say, hey, I want to retain your firm to find us people? That's really what caused that entry point into the executive recruitment space. And I've been able to really utilize those lead generation methodologies and technologies in order to bring on new clients. And then because I'm a strategic thinker, because I'm a problem solver, because I have an inquisitive mindset with my clients, that really allows us to be consultants throughout the recruitment process, because they may come to me and say, hey, Jeremy, I need a VP of engineering. But during that discovery process, we might find out that they really need a VP of service delivery that happens to have an engineering degree. You know what I'm saying? Providing a consultative approach to the executive recruitment process and figuring out why they're filling a position, then we can actually go out and find who. And then from a marketing standpoint, because I'm a lead generator, figure out why and what messaging we need to utilize in order to get that candidate to bite, to say, hey, I'm willing to talk to Mark about this job opportunity, and I wasn't even looking before. So it's really coupling lead generation, consultation, inquisitive mindset, marketing, content strategy, and providing a holistic approach to the recruitment space, which is really just solving problems with people. That's what we do.
Where do you think that strategic thinking came from? Because that's a skill, that's a leadership skill, which doesn't come natural to a lot of people. And even if they're the CEO of a business, that they might struggle, they might be in the weeds as the operational piece, but they're not strategically thinking. Where do you think that came from, and how have you been able to utilize that for your success?
We'll be back after a quick break.
When it comes to influencer marketing, there's a podcast that covers it all that you will want to add to your playlist. The Influence Factor by the Influencer Marketing Factory. They talk about influencer marketing, social media, the creator economy, social commerce, and much, much more. They cover all aspects, including the creator economy, social commerce, the latest trends, the metaverse, TikTok trends, and that's just the beginning. The Influence Factor by the Influencer Marketing Factory. Add the podcast to your playlist right now.
Yeah, I think that it probably came from just having an inquisitive mindset, right? If somebody brings a problem to me, and I'm a father as well, I've got 3 young kids. If one of my children brings a problem, I think naturally we're inclined to just solve the problem. But I think one of the things that gives me a competitive advantage is I want to understand, why did the problem arise? What failed? What did you do about it? How did that individual react? What is the outcome? What should have been the outcome? And by doing that root cause analysis, then I can actually solve the problem by putting in a mechanism as opposed to just putting out the fire. And I think that's probably my secret sauce, is that's problem solving component, right? The ability to identify patterns, and rather than continuing to put out the same fires over and over again, putting in a process, putting in a system, putting in a person to make sure that problem doesn't arise again.
It sounds like you've also got quite a deep level of emotional intelligence as well, which is obviously hugely valuable in a people business.
It took a lot of self-work in order to get there, I'll say. I just turned 40 last month, and I'll tell you, if you would have met 33-year-old me, that was probably the least emotionally intelligent person in the room. I knew I was the smartest person in the room. I knew I was the most successful. And the problem is, Mark, is I was just in the wrong room. I was hanging out with people that were making $100,000 a year when I was making $100,000 a month. And I was flexing on them and showing off. I was cocky. I was arrogant. And really that left me being very isolated, being very alone. My short temper, my aggressiveness, it was all tied to insecurity and unhappiness, man. 100%.
Yeah. How do you, at Encore, how do you place professionals in such a diverse, different field? So you do things like engineering, law, C-suite. How do you manage so many different industries?
Yeah, so I think one of the reasons why we've been so successful in building different practice areas at Encore Search is because we reverse engineered what the highest margin opportunities for us to be successful in. And what we found is whenever the person is the asset for the organization. So I'll give you an example. If I am Apple, I think that the enterprise value for that organization is not necessarily in the production manager at the facility that's making the phones or the design engineer who's designing the phone. It's the actual brand and the intellectual capital tied to the Apple organization. But if I'm a law firm, if I'm a public accounting firm or a private equity firm, there's a lot of value tied to the person, right? The lawyer that's doing the work, that's developing the relationships with his or her clients, right? Bringing that book of business over. And so by investing in industries where the person is the asset, it allows us to charge very premium fees to move the person, right? And then there's not necessarily an emotional tie to, are they the right color as me? Are they the right sexual orientation? Are they the right age? Are they the right culture fit? Does this person have the technical competency to service their clients at my firm, right? If I place a lawyer at a law firm and she's an 8th year associate that went to NYU Law, her salary is going to be about $350,000, okay? That's a sizable salary here in the US.
Yeah.
But if she's billing out at $1,000 an hour for her clients, and she's billing out for 1,800 hours a year, that's $1.8 million in revenue she generates for her firm.
Right.
Do you think they care about cutting me a check
No.
for $87,500 to move her? She's generating 1.8 in gross revenue. So by leaning into industries where the people are the profit centers for the organization, it allows us to charge very premium fees. The president of $100 million manufacturing company in Houston, Texas makes $350,000. This is a 35-year-old woman. Yeah. That's an individual contributor at her law firm. Yeah. So that's really sustained long-term growth and success and profitability for our organization, is not necessarily focusing on that C-suite or that VP title, but chasing the industries where the people are the revenue generators.
And is law one of the most profitable ones for you?
Absolutely. Lawyers, wealth advisors, investment bankers, private equity professionals, public accountants, consulting engineers. These are the areas that we love to play for sure.
And you're following where the money is. Like, it's not rocket science, but a lot of people don't think in that strategic way. Come back to strategy again, that strategic way of going. Where are the people that earn the highest value for their business? And if you follow them and find them, it's a great thought process for my audience to hear that, because another interesting thing that I heard from someone else is that always be involved with reducing friction in the transfer of money. So if you can reduce the friction to it, like Amazon have done it perfectly. Like, you used to have to fill in your details and all that sort of stuff. Now it's one button or two buttons, no friction, and that's why they're hugely successful. You guys listening should think about this. I wouldn't say only chase the money, because there are other aspects of your life and other aspects of your profession that you might want to achieve and be rewarded by. But if you're looking to grow a business, reducing friction, finding where the highest profitability for other clients are, can be so powerful. So I think that's a great idea.
Absolutely. And I'll give you an experience share. A friend of mine, I'll reserve his name right now,
sure,
but his father owned a business here in Central Texas where they made trailers. So think about a trailer that goes on an 18-wheeler with all that stuff. And so family business, they'd been around 30 years, highly profitable, highly successful. My friend, when he was 16 years old, helping out in the family business, he was working in procurement for his father.
Sure.
And there wasn't a reliable resource for him to find trailer parts. And so he would go to all of these different, let's just say Alibaba, Amazon, online resources. And then he had the idea, he said, there needs to be a resource that just sells trailer parts, right? Trailer parts. So at 16 years old, he started the URL trailerparts.com. He invests over $1 million a month in search engine marketing and search engine optimization, Google AdWords, things of that nature. At 23 years old, he generates 9 figures a year in revenue with 8 figures a year in profit.
Wow.
So the moral of the story is his dad was in the trailer manufacturing business, and this is the way they'd always done it.
Yeah.
Right? Amazon today would be very profitable, probably selling books or ebooks, but they didn't stick with what they had started. They solved a problem in the space and created a multi-trillion-dollar enterprise business by solving the problem, not necessarily just doing it the way that they'd always done it.
Yeah. Great message. So I talked about your core values when I did your intro. And tell me why they're so important to you and your business and what inspired them.
So you mentioned our core values. I'll just mention them one more time. So excellence, resilience, gratitude, professionalism, coachability, meticulousness, and competitiveness. In 2017, my VP, who's now our president today, he asked me, he said, hey, Jeremy, I want you to write down the last 10 reasons why you fired someone. And so I wrote down pessimistic, lack of work ethic, unresponsive to emails and text messages, all these things, right? And then based on the reasons why I fired people, we developed the first iteration of our core values, right? Okay. Have a winning attitude, be responsive and accessible, chase the money, right? And then over the years, through the implementation of EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System, we take a look at our values every quarter, and we found that we needed to simplify them, or in some ways we needed to consolidate them. And that is what bred the core values. And so when you come into our office, we've got a huge wall in our lobby that's just massive with our core values. All of our screensavers, all of our mouse pads, all of our meetings, we talk about the values day in and day out. It's the lifeblood of our organization. By having clarity around the values during the recruitment process, the interview process, the onboarding, the training, the coaching, the firing, right? All to the core values, it removes awkwardness whenever it comes to having tough conversations. Hey, Mark, why don't you come into my office? I want to talk to you about professionalism, right? Now I'm not calling you out because you're wearing sneakers on a Tuesday and we've got clients in the office. I'm citing professionalism. I want to talk to you about, hey, you just got a $50,000 commission and you're rubbing it in your colleague's face. Now it's not me saying you're a fucking asshole. It's me citing one of the core values, right? About professionalism or gratitude. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it makes sense.
It relieves you. It makes it very easy to have a mechanism to where we can have tough conversations with our people. But better yet, it gives our people a mechanism to have tough conversations with leadership, right? If we're saying that excellence is one of our core values and meticulousness and professionalism, it makes it easy for our people to manage up as well.
We'll be back after a quick break.
If you want tips and strategies on how to start, grow, and monetize your business online, check out the Digital Revolution podcast with Eli Adams. We interview digital experts from around the world that share their personal stories. They talk about what they're currently working on and where they see the future going. But most importantly, they share tactics in their specific area of expertise with the hope of helping you improve your digital presence online. You can listen to the Digital Revolution podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio, or simply click on the link in the show notes below.
And there's a really good book about the New Zealand rugby team. I'm a bit of a rugby union fan
The All
myself.
Blacks?
The All Blacks, exactly. And I'm
Yeah.
trying to desperately remember what the book's called, and I can't remember at the top of my head. They talk about the values that are important to them and what they do to be able to keep themselves grounded, as well as being able to strive for the excellence that you talk about. And I think it's very similar. It's called Legacy. It's called Legacy
Okay.
by James Kerr. And I think that's exactly what you're talking about. It gives everyone the same rules, everyone the same values, gives everyone the same reasons to achieve excellence, to achieve professionalism. And what it works so well with the All Blacks is that grounding. It keeps no one gets an inflated, like there's one of them which is clean the sheds out, which essentially is at the end of a rugby match, there'll be designated certain people, and it could be the captain, it could be the star player, it could be a substitute or whatever it is. They then have to make sure that the room that they've changed in is clear and it's clean and everything's like. And I find when you're talking about values, and this can be a personal set of values or a professional set of values, one of the great things about them is it keeps everyone on the same page. Everyone is grounded. Everyone understands the rules, understands what they're looking to achieve. And it sounds like you've just nailed it when it comes to, as you say, like from your point of view, you can have that tough conversation with someone because of a value that they're not doing sneakers, trainers in the day. But actually that they can question going up as well, which I think is super important. And I know when I was doing the research about you, you've had amazing results on your clients, your customer satisfaction, your employee satisfaction, I should say. You've been very successful on that. Do you think that again, that is back to your core values?
Absolutely. And it's all tied to culture, right? But I think one of the things that's a common misconception is people think that, oh, if you're nice, if you provide freedom, flexibility, flex schedule, and all this, that creates a positive culture. And I don't necessarily subscribe to that. What I'm getting at is you just need to be clear about what your expectations are and what your values are.
Yeah.
And you need to hold yourself accountable to sticking to what you say.
Yeah.
And then saying what you do. So my example would be, if I know that meticulousness is one of our core values, and during the whole interview process, right, I'm telling someone we cross our T's, we dot our I's, our average fee is $54,000. If our clients are paying these premium fees, we need to provide a bespoke white glove meticulous experience.
Yeah.
If you cut corners, if you have poor grammar or bad spelling, you're not going to be successful at Encore Search Partners. You'd be surprised at how many people self-select out of the interview process. Mm-hmm. It's intimidating to hear, right? Yeah. But for somebody where meticulousness is one of their core values, they love it. They gravitate towards that mentality, right? And knowing that all of their colleagues around them share the same passion for meticulousness, for professionalism, for competitiveness, you don't have to worry whether or not you're on the winning team, because we are the winning team.
Yeah.
And we have very high expectations. And just because we say what we are and we hold ourselves accountable to it, that breeds an incredible culture. It doesn't mean we're all taking 2-hour lunch breaks and providing free snacks. You know what I'm saying? It just means that we're consistent in what we say we're going to do.
But not to counter that, but just as an interesting sort of thought experiment. So I think certain companies are more designed for flexible working, long lunch breaks, working from home, and things like that. And in my business, my podcast booking service, we're all remote workers now globally, and that works very well for us. But that might not necessarily work for executive recruitment, and so I think every industry desires and requires a slight tweak on the rules that they have but it's being accountable as well. So if you're an employee and you're doing a job, you have to be accountable to your boss. Your boss equally has to be accountable to the team as well, that they are putting in the hours, they're putting in the effort, they're thinking about strategy, they're building the next evolution of that business. So I think every industry, every type of job, they don't need to. Now, the way you've crafted it works for your business outright. It works exactly for your business, but in a different industry or a different way, they might need to tweak it. So when you're thinking about this, guys that are listening and watching this, just think about those values that are important to you as a business owner, because these ones work for Jeremy and your ones might be slightly different. They might need a slightly different version, but you do need to, like, values and culture in a company is so critical.
Absolutely. And again, if you're struggling with identifying what they are, the easiest mechanism that I've seen is, what are the last 10 reasons why you fired someone? Okay. When you take a look at it, you might have fired someone because you found out that they were being unfaithful in their marriage, and that changed the way that you looked at them. And every little thing that they did, it irked you until you found a reason to fire them. But you didn't fire them because they left the toilet seat up. You fired them because they weren't loyal or committed or faithful. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so, like, reverse engineering the real reasons, and then being very consistent in publishing, hey guys, our values are around family. Our values are around faith, follow through, whatever it is that fuels your way of thinking. Those are your values. For me, I want to be the best. I want to close deals and I want to make money. Go to our website to look at our why. That sounds very aggressive, but I put it out there for all the clients to see. And if you want to save the whales in this industry, right? If you want to help people find jobs, do it on your personal time. We want to make money and we want to close deals, right? And if you make a lot of money, you can donate a lot to whatever charities you want. But being consistent around what your why is and about your values, then it makes it very easy to provide scalability in the business, because nobody's having to look over their shoulder wondering if they're doing a good job. All they have to do is look out their mouse pad.
What's your risk appetite, would you say?
We'll be back after a quick break.
Coaching Conversation 2024. This podcast is 100% dedicated to leadership and leadership within the workplace coaching area. We work with companies throughout the world teaching leaders how to coach their employees. This podcast is dedicated to teaching specific strategies, frameworks, coaching models, and now artificial intelligence strategies to help leaders drive greater teamwork, collaboration, cooperation, greater attitudes, better motivation, coaching career development, just to name a few. I hope you'll check out our podcast.
I'm an entrepreneur, right? And we risk it all every single day.
Has that changed, Jeremy? Has your risk appetite changed over the years?
I think I transfer my risk appetite into different things. How about that?
Okay.
But I'll say that I think that it's been an advantage for me to the fact that I've grown up without money, because I don't have a scarcity mindset. I have an abundance mindset. And what I mean by that is because I didn't grow up with anything, I'm not afraid of losing everything, because I never had it in the first place. It's all just bonus time. And so we're in the process of putting an offer together for a new VP of lead generation with a compensation structure that hopefully this individual is going to be making $500,000 a year. And so I don't look at it as being a $500,000 expense. I look at it as, is this investment going to provide a higher return than if I took that $500,000 and put it into the stock market? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So like by using logic and removing emotion for financial decisions, it allows me to take more quick risks, right? Because at the end of the day, everything is a risk. Getting married is a risk. Having children is a risk. Hiring, firing, right? Coaching, developing, mentoring, buying a home. These are all risks that we face. And I'm not in the business of risk mitigation. I'm in the business of risk taking.
Why not risk mitigation?
I think that my lawyers and my wealth advisors and people that I pay, they're in the business of risk mitigation. And so I certainly have controls and mechanisms in place. But I'm an entrepreneur that's focused on growth and development. And if you want to constantly eliminate the probability of getting hurt, that's like a quarterback on a football team, right? Every single time he takes the field, there's a possibility of him getting hurt. But he's not in the business of risk mitigation. He's trying to throw touchdowns. And he knows.
Hold up, Jeremy. I want to challenge you slightly on this, because I actually think risk mitigation is actually a smart move. You can disagree with me. I'm cool with that. We all do things differently. But what I've learned over the years is thinking about, so for me, it's not, am I going to take that risk or not? I've got my podcast, I've got businesses that are in real estate as well as the booking service as well. When I'm making decisions about taking a risk, a new employee, a different marketing strategy, should I invest in this property? Should I do this real estate strategy? What I do before I take that risk is I think about all of the things around it which is part of that risk. So I might make a decision of, okay, so I might not do buy to lets anymore. I might just do Airbnb, because there's more potential growth that you can do in real estate in that avenue. But I will think about the Airbnb. So I don't do pros and cons, but what are the advantages of taking that risk of that strategy? And then I think about what could actually go wrong if the market fell out, or there was legislation that changed it, or regulation that changed that. So I actually personally, and by all means challenge me on it, and you can ask me a question if you want, I think actually thinking around the risk taking before you go is actually quite smart, because you're actually trying to work out, what if it all goes wrong, where does it put me? So what is your thoughts on risk mitigation?
Excellent. So you're not doing risk mitigation. What you've done is you've educated yourself to the level of being such an expert to where your decision makings, it de-risks every decision that you make.
Yeah.
There is no risk. There is no risk whenever you've made the decision. That's what I'm trying to say.
Right. And I think you're right. I think you're right. Yeah. And I would call it risk mitigation. I suppose you're thinking about that. The risk mitigation is
it's an opportunity.
You don't take that opportunity. Yeah, I get that. And look, you've got people that you've put into companies who are employees, and they don't want to take any risk with their wealth, with their finances. They want the stable job, and they just want to know that they're earning 100,000, 100%. And I think that's you as a business owner. You don't always want lots of entrepreneurial people there. You actually need a good base of people who are satisfied by earning their money, that they can then make choices on a Saturday or Sunday.
Absolutely. So I think we're speaking the same language. I don't think we're so far apart.
No, I think you're exactly right. Something that I found out, that you're part of EO, Entrepreneur Organization. How has that helped you in your business and life?
I joined the Entrepreneurs Organization in 2018. I was separated from my wife at the time. Millions of dollars in the bank, 3 beautiful young kids, Audi R8 in the driveway, big, beautiful house. On the surface, it looked like I was successful, and I was very unhappy. And by joining EO and in an environment with other entrepreneurs that had faced similar things in their past, or maybe they were going through it at the same time as me, by providing a very open and vulnerable space to just speak about my personal challenges, that helped me process some of those issues to where I could make a very educated decision, remove emotion from it, and move forward on going through a divorce and essentially rebuilding from scratch. And so I would say that being in an environment of individuals that are like-minded thinkers, that are very risk tolerant, right? That are sometimes egocentric. I remember sitting through a training hosted by Cameron Harold, who owns a business called the COO Alliance. And he had put these 13 characteristics on the board. And he said, what do all these have in common? What is this person? And everybody in the EO room said, those are all characteristics of an entrepreneur. And then he went to the next slide and it said the 13 characteristics of a sociopath. And so the point is we're just different, Mark. Yeah. And so when you put yourself in an environment where you remove judgment, there's no solicitation policies. You don't need anything from me. I don't need anything from you. We're cut of the same cloth. We have the same way of thinking. We have the same abundance mindset, the same risk appetite. It creates a safe space to talk about your emotions, your fears, your insecurities. And then you help one another make quicker decisions. I think that's one thing that EO has done. I'm still the one making the decisions. These aren't my business coaches. Yeah. But they're providing a safe space for me to process some of the challenges and opportunities in my life.
Yeah, I think it's a really good organization. I think that's great. How have you developed as a leader?
How have I developed as a leader? I think that as I've gotten larger as an organization and as I've grown older and become a more empathetic father, I've been a little bit more hands-off as a leader. I think that in the beginning, I wanted to have my finger on everything because I was the best recruiter. I was the best account manager, the best salesperson, the best marketer. And then I realized that if I just hire a bunch of people that can do it 70% as good as me, I train them, I give them the systems, I give them the tools to be successful, I give them the freedom to fail, right? If I have 50 employees multiplied by 70% yield of myself, that's 3,500% of what I could do on my own, right? And so I think that what I've done is really just delegate and elevate. That's what I've done more of as a leader. And I think what's allowed me to do that is the work that I do with my life coach and recognizing what is my why, right? What brings me happiness? What is the definition of success to myself? And really leaning more into those things and less into having my identity and my life circled around being that team manager. I can hire people to be the team managers that are passionate about that. But if I know that, go ahead.
I was just going to say, so years ago, do you think you were the bottleneck in part of your success by letting go and letting other people do the 70% of what you can do? Because a lot of people who are entrepreneurs that are in smaller businesses are often the bottleneck to their success because they think they are the only person that can do the sales, only person that can manage their people. So do you think you were a bottleneck at one point in your business career?
Of course I was, but it's difficult to say that because you can have a business that's small where you're the bottleneck and you could be making $500,000 or $600,000 a year. Yeah. So it's hard to say that you're a bottleneck or that you're unsuccessful because the income is there. And these are people that are like real estate agents, lawyers, wealth advisors, CPAs. If you're the one doing the work, that's not a real business. You're not a business person. You happen to own the company that you work in.
Yeah. So one of my favorite books is called The E-Myth, and the reason why I love it so much is that the three classifications of the business is you have your technicians, the people that do the day-to-day job. They could be a baker, they could be a financial advisor. And then you've got the managers, the people that are the HR, the people that help the business, might be operations, the people that help business. And then at the top is the entrepreneur. And the entrepreneur is thinking what we've talked about strategically. Where's the next opportunity? Where's the next employee? Where do I bring those next opportunities through? And what often some businesses, smaller businesses, they still want to be the technician and they don't want to give that bit up and be the entrepreneur, the strategic thinker. Would you agree with that definition?
Absolutely. They hold on to it because they think that their clients hired them for their technical competency and they don't really ever outgrow that limited mindset. It's very odd, to be quite honest. Now, obviously, with me being in the executive recruitment space, I'm a massive proponent for just hire somebody to do the job. Yeah. We can go find somebody to do it, right? But that's really what's created sustainable growth in our business is I've recognized what are all the things that I do and that I'm not great at, hire. What are all the things that I do that I am great at, but maybe I don't want to do it? Go hire. So then I really lean into the things that I am great at, that I love to do, right? Which is podcasting, marketing, lead generation, right? And none of these things are tied to revenue, but they ultimately breed long-term growth and success with content marketing and things of that nature.
Yeah. How does an executive recruiter recruit?
How do we recruit?
Yeah.
Yeah. For our company is what you're saying?
Yeah,
or for
for
our
your
clients?
company. No, for your company.
Oh, what's funny is I'm like, what's the right word? I'm one of those guys that doesn't even use my own product, because what I've found is if I go out and hire somebody that I put in a LinkedIn project, I ambush them, I get them excited about the opportunity, they start, they have industry experience, maybe I'm 50% success rate, right? Because I'm essentially getting the person who the other firm didn't want. They didn't put the golden handcuffs on them. Okay. So I'm getting their B players. So what I've done successfully is I've created a brand where we talk about winning. We talk about competitive drive, professionalism, gratitude, resilience, the constant pursuit of excellence, and then individuals that follow the content strategy on LinkedIn, on Instagram. It doesn't matter, Mark, if they are a manager of a Vitamin World. It doesn't matter if they're the manager of a Bath and Body Works or a Pingu Swim School. If they are our 7 core values and they want to work at Encore Search Partners because they're passionate about the culture, they will be successful in our environment. And so the way that we recruit is by firing people up for years on social media until it's their idea to say, I want to work for Jeremy Jenson. And you'd be surprised at how many unbelievably incredible people we've got on our team. The president of my company was a department manager at JCPenney. Our director of talent acquisition, learning and development was working at a tax consulting firm. Our vice president of legal has a degree in construction science and was a construction engineer out of college. Right. The point is it's about the values that breed success at our organization, not the industry experience.
Yeah, interesting. Look, we're coming to the end of the interview. I asked the same 6 questions to all of my guests. They don't need a quick fire answer. The first question I want to ask you is, what's the best decision that you've made?
The best decision that I've made, I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, so I'm gonna the original answer that popped into my mind. But I would say that the best decision that I've made is implementing EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System. In 2016, I hired a vice president, and I wanted him to carry a quota for revenue generation. And he said, the only way I'll come work for you, Jeremy, is if there's no quota. At the time, we were generating about $1 million in revenue, and it had taken me several years to even get to $1 million. And after hiring that individual who was tasked with implementing EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System, that allowed us to grow from 1 million to 10 million just in 4 short years, right? By implementing processes, systems, and accountability with our people. Turning over 90% of the organization, rebuilding with a new definitive culture. That's probably been the smartest decision that I've implemented in business.
Amazing. What's the best piece of advice you've been given?
The best piece of advice that I was given was from a gentleman by the name of George Joseph. And George has been divorced, and he is in the Entrepreneurs Organization. Very successful entrepreneur, multiple entities. And whenever I was thinking about going through a divorce, and I was just thinking about how much money it was going to cost me to get divorced, and I was just not moving forward with the process because I was thinking about how much money I was going to lose. And he said, Jeremy, he goes, I'd say you're rich, right? I think for my age, I would consider myself rich, but comparatively speaking, I don't believe that I am. And he goes, I'll tell you that I believe that you're rich. And I go, okay, thank you, George. He goes, what half of rich is? So what? He goes, still rich. And The reason I'm telling you this story is I love my ex-wife dearly. She's the mother of my 3 children. She is an unbelievable person. I talk to her every day. She's one of my very best friends. She is an engineer. She is a very big scarcity mindset person, right? She's not a risk taker. And I don't believe that I would have been able to 10x my firm if I would have still been married to the risk mitigator engineer who was very happy with me making $500,000 a year, right? And so the best piece of advice that I got was, it's okay to be divorced. You're not a failure. You're not a loser. Take care of your children. Take care of your family. And that will provide more freedom and flexibility for you to achieve your goals. Because my goals when I got married in 2010 were different than my goals here today in 2024.
Absolutely. Who's the person that's helped you most in your career?
I think the person that's helped me most in my career, there's so many different individuals. It's easy to say my president, Scott Kelly, who is our EOS integrator. I'm the visionary and he's the integrator. Scott is somebody who I trust, who I respect, who holds me accountable with regards to the way that I treat people. And whenever us as an executive team say that we're going to do something, he makes sure that I get it done. So Scott has been very influential in my career. Casey Knight, my executive VP over my wealth management practice, is our biggest revenue generator in the firm. That's somebody who has really influenced my freedom and flexibility because I didn't need to be the rainmaker in the organization. Casey's the one that could build a $10 million business unit where I'm essentially his business partner investor and he's the operator. And then my executive coach, Michael Anderson, somebody who I meet with every week. He touches base every morning as well, but he functions as my accountability partner. He helps me process my emotions and provides clarity to allow me to make swifter decisions and then holds me accountable to making sure that I make those decisions that I say that I'm going to do.
Amazing. Tell me about a regret that you have.
When I first got divorced, I was generating 7 figures in personal income. I had all this freedom and flexibility to do whatever I want because I didn't have my wife holding me accountable anymore. And I lived a very impulsive, gluttonous, selfish lifestyle. And it was all bred by insecurity. And I gained 80 pounds. I became very distant from my children. I had a very transactional life whenever it came to dating partners. And I regret going through that 2-year phase of selfishness and gluttony and needing the wake-up call of driving my Audi R8 into a fucking tree at 80 miles an hour and getting out of that car and walking home with literally not a scratch on me. I needed that wake-up call to realize that I'm creating a path of destruction. And it didn't matter how much money that I made. It mattered about my character, my integrity. It mattered about my life as a father, as a spouse, as a son, as a leader, as a philanthropist, as a neighbor, as a friend. That those were the areas that would bring me happiness, that it wasn't about the flash and it wasn't about the money. It was about character and integrity.
Yeah, great lesson. What are you most proud of?
I'm proud of my growth and development over the last 3 years. My work, due to the work that I've done with my executive coach. I've lost recently 77 pounds. Having the confidence to go get a hair transplant here in Houston and the confidence that it's bred there.
Great.
Being in a position where I've promoted high producers into executive level roles and delegated to them in order to elevate me to spend more time on marketing and my social life. I'm very proud of the friendships and relationships that I have with platonic partners. And I'm just proud of the self-awareness and growth that I've curated over the last 3 years, for sure.
Amazing. Why do you do what you do?
I used to say that my why was to bring smiles to the faces of others whenever they heard my name. And then I went through a legacy planning seminar hosted by Petra Group a couple of months ago. And this was a 5-hour seminar hosted by their founder. And there were several different module exercises. And obviously one of them was like, write down your bucket list, the 20 different things, and write down the 6 most influential people in your life. And I wrote down my oldest son, my middle son, my youngest son, my ex-wife, my president, my VP. And there was an exercise where the facilitator said, all right, now close your eyes. It's 10 years from now. And I want you to visualize where number 1 is, right? 10 years from now. And my birthday was coming up in about 3 weeks. And I vividly envisioned my son, 21 years old. He was at Yale University. He was on the row team. He had abs. He had long hair. He was surrounded by beautiful friends, female friends. And he was telling his friends, hey, my dad's 50th birthday party is coming up. We're going to come take the jet and he's going to fly us all in. I want all of y'all to come to his birthday party. And so I had this epiphany of I wanted him to be fit. I wanted him to be highly respected and admired by women. I wanted him to be athletic. I wanted him to go to Yale University. I wanted him to be socially networked. I envisioned my middle son, 19 years old. He's the point guard at Duke University. My middle son, Luke, has never made less than 100 in his life. He is a savant at basketball, and he is a savant in academics. And having crystal clarity around where he was going to go to school, what he was going to be doing, what position, that provided clarity on getting him a performance coach, right, for his athleticism, putting him in a traveling AAU basketball team to help refine his skills, and providing clarity around that. But the point that I'm making is I was vividly obsessed with where my kids were in 10 years, how they looked, who they associated with, what schools that they went to. It didn't matter the amount of money that was in the bank. Am I setting my children up for success in the area that I want them to be successful? And pouring resources in to creating the network and the mechanism in order for them to become the men of character and integrity that adhere to those 7 core values. That's what my why is. That's what I do it for. It's my children. And I need to live an active lifestyle. I need to treat women with respect. I need to have a good reputation. And then, of course, I need the financial freedom to provide these experiences that I envision for them. That's my why.
This isn't part of the question. What happens if your son that's good at basketball and you've given them all the opportunities, and at 21 years old, let's say, says, I don't want to do basketball anymore. I want to become, I don't know, a lawyer, a doctor, or even an entrepreneur. I want to start my own business doing X, Y, and Z. If their reality is different to what you've visualized them to be, do you think you'll be disappointed as you've worked so hard to get them to that point?
Not at all, because everything that I'm doing is tied to those 7 core values. And I talk openly with my children about this today. Luke says he wants to open a gym. I say, fantastic. You're going to have the best gym. Your gym's going to be profitable. We're going to develop strategies on how to drive traffic for people to sign up for your gym. He's 9 years old, and I'm instilling the values that I know he'll be successful in life. I don't care if he owns a gym. I don't care if he's a lawyer, doctor, an executive search professional. I don't care if he's an MMA fighter, an artist. What I do care about is he resilient? Is he grateful? Is he coachable? Is he meticulous? And is he competitive? Now, sports, social life, right? Those are mechanisms that can help instill those values that will breed success in life in whatever he chooses. Those are the things that I can control, is those 7 core values. Right. But I have to live it myself.
Yeah. One last question about this with your kids, because I find it absolutely fascinating, because I've got a 8 and 10-year-old, and They're two young girls who are having lots of different impacts with social media and things like that, which I never had. And it's a whole new world that they're experiencing. So I'm fascinated how you visualize this and how you're going to help them grow to what they want. The last question about your children is, let's just say that your child says, I want to work at a gym and be a PT instructor. I don't want to own the gym. I don't want to own 100 gyms nationally across the country. I just want to be an employee and be a PT instructor. How would you feel about that?
I would probably, that's a great question.
Thank you.
I think I would own the gym and have him be the employee at the gym. That's an interesting question. Obviously, so my love languages are words of affirmation and physical touch. I give my kids massages. I rub their feet. I affirm them. We have movie nights on Friday night every night where we cuddle up in my bed and watch movies. I think as long as they love their dad, I'm going to be perfectly okay. But at the end of the day, if he wants to work there, I don't know. I don't know if that's lacking competitiveness. He could still be very competitive as an employee at that gym. And as long as he's adhering to those core values, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to be very proud for sure.
Great. All right. I won't probe you anymore about that. I just thought it was really interesting the way you'd visualized it, because we all have whatever parent, or not whatever parent, but a lot of parents say like, I'd really like my child to be this, or I'd really like my child to own that or be that. And it's really interesting because sometimes children just do their own thing and they don't really care what mum or dad thinks about it. They're just going to do it. So I was asking you very unfair questions, but I just thought it was interesting to explore.
Absolutely. But if you really just tie it to the values and not the career or the university or the degree plan, if they're meticulous, if they're grateful, if they're resilient, that breeds success in whatever they decide, whether it's medical school, law school, engineering, artistry, singing. You can be successful in whatever avenue you choose. Absolutely.
Last question. What does legacy mean to you?
For me, legacy is, and I don't think that this is even remotely related to the formal definition of legacy, but to me, legacy is how do people speak about me whenever I'm not there? Okay. And so obviously the easiest way to breed legacy is through your children, right? Because when I'm long and gone, when you're looking at how they carry themselves, who they associate with, that is your legacy. But legacy could also be through an impact that you made on your industry and your career, right? How do people speak about your impact on that? That could be defined as legacy as well. So it's how do people talk about you whenever you're long and gone? Because we talk about Michael Jackson in a certain narrative, right? Because of the legacy he left. We talk about Elvis Presley. We talk about famous actors and the legacy that they gave, but it's really how we speak about them that's their legacy. And there's certainly people that have legacies that have certainly a negative connotation, like Hitler and people like that, who maybe at that point in time would have said that they were very successful.
Interesting.
But what's the legacy that they left?
Yeah. And lastly, if anyone wants to reach out to you or talk to you about your business, where can they find you?
So my name is Jeremy Jenson, Jenson. And if you want to hit me up, just find me on LinkedIn. I'm the CEO and founder of Encore Search Partners. We're an executive search firm here in Houston, Texas. Just shoot me a message and I'll be happy to engage.
Great. Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you so much for your time today. It's been really fascinating delving into your experiences, your mindset, the way you approach things. It's been a great episode. I've thoroughly enjoyed myself, and I think I've learned some things as well. So thank you for your time.
Excellent. Thank you for having me.
Cheers.
Thank you for listening to Business Growth Talks. This podcast is released every Monday, so don't miss an episode by subscribing to all podcast platforms including Apple and Spotify. Have a great day.